Stop creating fluff content. I see so many people creating useless fucking content that does not do shit. So let me tell you exactly what content does shit. So two things, right? Connection content, and then there's authority content. So authority content is basically value, insights, don't mind my drawing, and shifting beliefs, right? Connection content builds trust. So before people can buy from you, there are hundreds of people selling the same offer. So the only reason why they would choose you is either because you have a better offer, you have a more done for you solutions, or they like you and they like your marketing and your personal brand more. They relate to you, right? So trust, and that's through storytelling content. So those are two types of content. How do you do each of them? Now, just so you know, I'm not pulling this out of my ass. I flew to Miami to help with the 1v10 project with Bread Scales. I help content for Rayston and Monray. I'm now working with a lot of the biggest info people in the space. And that's just to tell you my credibility, so I'm not pulling this out of my ass. Going back to the video, how you do storytelling content is you find the experiences that are within your niche. So it's, for example, I realized that creating content about your service delivery is what positions you as an authority in your personal brand. So I gave that insight on my Instagram reel and people fucking ate that shit up. Like if we go to my Instagram reels right now, we go to this reel where I gave an insight about the info industry, how documentation over content creation. A lot of people were reacting like, oh my God, I got like 400 to 500 qualified followers from this reel. It was very, very simple. But because I gave an insight in a documented format where I was just at the dinner table, it wasn't performative, it was non-performative content. And I was giving an insight. I said the first word, everyone in the info space, I said info space. That is a key word that identifies like people in the niche would hear the info space and will be curious about this, as well as the way that I dress commands authority, the visual hook. You know, I'm not just some retard, some kid. You dress in a certain way to be seen as an authority and to stop the scroll. Because when someone see you, the first thing they'll see is how you look like, how you dress, and how you sound. So it's very important that you don't look like a retard and you look like someone that knows what they're talking about. But I made this video about like an insight within my industry in a documented format, talking about my insight, and that shit ripped. Now, this is not storytelling content. This is more belief shifting content. It used the various formats to convey that message. I use the dinner table format. But going back to storytelling content, you wanna find the experiences, the stories. You wanna find the experiences and the stories about you, right? Because you are the personal brand. So you need to ask yourself, what is my ethnicity? What is my age? What is my experiences, right? I was talking to a guy called Amari and he's an Airbnb coach. I had a content and strategy session with him and he was telling me, oh, I don't know what to talk about with my content. I don't know how to build more storytelling content. I don't know how to build more trust and make people choose me out of all the other people. I told him, you need to talk more about yourself because the only reason why they would choose your competitor over you is because maybe your competitor's offer is better. So either you improve your offer or you improve your marketing and be different and stand out with your personal brand. So I told him, talk about you being Muslim, right? You're Muslim, talk about being Muslim. Talk about you being valedictorian, right? He was valedictorian in university. So, and talk about his experiences seeing his sister overwork herself, right? And how he didn't want to go down that path, working a job. So he has certain experiences which had led him to the insight of doing Airbnb, right? Airbnb. So I said, leverage your stories and experiences, right? Talk about you being Muslim. Talk about you seeing your sister, and how you don't want to go down the traditional path, and that's how you got into Airbnb coaching. Airbnb arbitrage, or how you were valedictorian, you got everything, you got the results, but you realized it wasn't it. So leverage your stories and experiences. You might have dropped out of university. You might have Asian parents. You know, if you're watching this, high likely chance you fuck with me and you're probably Asian. You're probably within that ethnicity because I know a lot of Asian people sign up to my coaching, consulting, or done for you offer. So talk about your experiences, and your experiences are stories about you that builds trust. And sometimes it doesn't have to be in your industry. Sometimes it can just be like a personal lesson where like, I realized that I underestimate how good I was, or I realized that I actually know my shit, or I realized that I was competent, or I realized that I need to go all into the thing if I want it to work. So they can be personal ones. They're a bit more top of funnel and they will still attract your ICP as long as you talk about the thing that you do indirectly, like, or talk about your business, what you do in your business, like starting my Airbnb business, you know, like indirectly tie in what you do. For example, I tied in that I run a content agency, I run a consulting offer, all these stuff, right? So that's for stories and experiences. Now, authority content is basically talking about the new beliefs that you have. New beliefs versus old beliefs. So your market has old beliefs. And so your goal is to shift those old beliefs to new beliefs. And new beliefs is basically what you sell. What you sell is basically all your beliefs packaged up into a program, consulting offer, or agency offer. So you need to address the old beliefs or talk about the new belief. So in that reel, I talked about a new belief that I have that I'm teaching all my clients and all the people I serve, which is documentation over content creation. And so I shift the old people's beliefs of just making talking head content, just making Miro board breakdowns, talking performative content, saying like all the biggest people in info space are documenting themselves over creating content. And I shift those beliefs, get them to bought into my world, into my paradigm, within my niche and expertise, which I teach personal branding, marketing, building a personal brand, becoming the #1 authority in your niche. The next thing is, of course, you can provide value. Value can be provided in a story. So you can do it in a story. You can do it in a case study, how you helped X person go from 0 to 10K a month or 10K to 100K a month. There are many different ways to display the value. Right now, there are many different formats to do from. Like you can have like the green screen, you can have like just a B-roll and text, you can have talking head, you can have raw talking head, you can have interview formats, you can have like the dinner table, you can have coaching calls, you can have like the Miro boards and stuff like that. So there are many different ways to give the value, but you want to experiment with different formats. You might want to even try a new format. You know, sometimes the cinematic approach will go well for you. Sometimes like the coaching calls, where I like do the coaching calls or like the screen recordings. Sometimes the dinner table, this format is ripping for me at the moment. So go try that. Maybe the interview format, if you're selling more to a B2C audience, maybe raw talking head. You know, you really want to test different formats to see what works for you. But find a format and give the value in that format. So it's like, talk about an old belief saying like, most people think X about this industry, or you do not need to do X as a fitness coach. You do not need to do this as a fitness coach. Or this is how to do X, like how to achieve desired state. So this is how I lost 20 kilograms in the last 3 months, basically doing absolutely nothing. This is how I managed to make 4K today through mastering this one thing about content. So it's like, have the desired state in mind and then have the hook as here's how to do X, or the hook basically needs to be a curiosity to achieve a desired state, right? If we go into the hooks, if we go to a hook is basically anything that creates curiosity, captures attention, and makes people want closure. So you need to create some sort of sentence or statements which makes people want closure on how to achieve the desired state of what you sell. So if you help people go from 10K to 100K, say like, this is how I made extra XK a month, or this is how I quit my 9 to 5 and made started to make X amount of dollars a month in less than X days. Or like, you do not need to do X within this industry. Whatever it is that you sell, have some sort of line which creates curiosity. The best sort of authority-based content is case studies, desired state content, and belief-shifting content. So don't do X, stop doing it, this is dead, as well as like the case studies, which is like clients that you've served that you got an amazing result with, and you want to break down how you got that result. I'm addressing the old beliefs of like, stop posting fluff content, what you should do instead, which is basically making you aware. You guys are aware that you're posting fluff content and you want to learn how to not post fluff content, what content to post. So that's it. If you guys want me to audit your personal brand, I'm running these little group calls once a week, once every 2 weeks, you know, where I get new people in. I record content myself, breaking down your personal brand. This will be on content. That's the value exchange, where I get content from breaking down your personal brand, and you guys get insights and you guys get an audit of what you can do to do better. So if you guys would like me to audit your personal brand, just DM me on IG. It's not a setter, it is genuinely me messaging you. So if you guys want me to audit your personal brand, just DM me on Instagram. I'll send you some stuff. I'll send you some videos. I'll also give you some resources if you need on whatever you need to help you out. So yeah, that's it. Peace.